In the sun-drenched border town of Sierra Vista, a former military canine trainer thought she'd found her peaceful new beginning running a veterinary clinic with her 2 Belgian Malinois war dogs. But when the notorious Serpent cartel kidnaps her to care for their prize fighting animals, Dr. Elena Reyes discovers her tactical training and loyal companions might be her only chance for survival. What the Serpent cartel didn't count on was abducting a woman whose 15 years of military experience and specially trained guardian dogs would turn their simple intimidation scheme into a desperate fight for freedom. The cartel's biggest mistake, assuming a veterinarian with combat-trained dogs would be an easy target. They're about to learn that some healers are hunters in disguise, and these dogs don't just bark, they execute military precision attacks. Quick pause before we continue. Tell us where in the world you're watching from. If you're enjoying these stories, make sure to hit subscribe because tomorrow's episode is absolutely mind-blowing. Dawn breaks over Sierra Vista, painting the desert landscape in warm golden hues. Dr. Elena Reyes stands on the back porch of her clinic, steam rising from her coffee mug as she surveys the exercise yard where her rescue animals roam. The morning heat hasn't intensified yet, creating a perfect window for the animals to play before the scorching afternoon sun forces them inside. Beside her, Shadow and Valor, 2 imposing Belgian Malinois, maintain their vigilant watch. Their muscular frames and alert posture reveal their military background, even in this peaceful setting. To casual observers, they might seem like ordinary, clinic guard dogs, but their training runs far deeper than simple protection work. The sound of tires on gravel draws Elena's attention. Her assistant Miguel Garcia pulls up in his weathered pickup, right on time, as always. At 26, Miguel is eager and dedicated, having worked his way through veterinary technician school while helping out at the clinic part-time. The morning routine unfolds with practiced precision. Medications dispensed, kennels cleaned, surgeries prepared. Elena moves with the efficiency of someone who spent years operating in high-pressure environments, though her military days are officially behind her. The Vasquez family's ranch dog is responding well to the heartworm treatment, Miguel reports, checking the patient chart. And that abandoned pit bull you treated yesterday is finally eating normally. Elena nods approvingly. After 15 years, training military working dogs for combat operations, healing animals gave her a sense of balance she'd been searching for since leaving the service. Shadow and Valor had been her last 2 trainees before retirement, their combat potential so remarkable that her commanding officer had allowed her to adopt them rather than reassign them to new handlers who couldn't possibly match their bond. A police cruiser pulls up outside, catching the dog's attention. Their ears perk up, but they remain positioned at Elena's side exactly as they were trained. Officer Carmen Diaz exits the vehicle, her usually professional demeanor carrying visible tension today. "Got a minute, Elena?" she asks, glancing at the clinic entrance. Elena recognizes the concern in her friend's voice. She hands her coffee mug to Miguel. "Take over morning rounds. I'll catch up in a few." As Miguel heads inside with the dogs following at a distance, Elena turns to Carmen. "What's going on?" Carmen lowers her voice. "You heard about Dr. Alvarez over in Copper Canyon." Elena feels a chill despite the morning warmth. Marco Alvarez was a respected veterinarian in the neighboring town. Something happened to him? Disappeared 3 days ago. Clinic trashed, blood on the floor. Carmen's expression darkens. The Serpent cartel has been expanding operations across the border. They're into everything now: drugs, weapons, exotic animals. Word is they've started organized dog-fighting rings, bringing in fighting dogs from across the border. Elena's jaw tenses, and they need vets to keep their animals alive. Marco was the second veterinarian to go missing in the region this month, Carmen confirms. First was Dr. Sorensen from Tucson, both specializing in large animals and exotics. The implication is clear. Elena's reputation as a former military canine trainer and exotic animal specialist puts her squarely in their sights. The department is stretched thin, Elena. Border Patrol has intercepted 3 major shipments this month, but we know it's just a fraction of what's coming through. The cartels have informants everywhere. They're watching, learning patterns, identifying valuable targets. Elena gazes across the dusty landscape that stretches toward the distant border. After 3 tours overseas, she'd chosen Sierra Vista for its peaceful remoteness, its distance from the chaos she'd known in combat zones. Yet trouble had found her anyway. What about your security system, Carmen asks. Standard clinic setup, nothing special, a partial truth. What Carmen doesn't know about are the military-grade motion sensors positioned around the property perimeter or the reinforced safe room built into the back of the clinic. Precautions that had seemed paranoid 6 months ago when Elena installed them. Carmen hands her a card. This is Agent Walker, DEA. They've been tracking the Serpent cartel's expansion. Call him if you notice anything suspicious. And Elena? Her expression grows serious. Consider taking some time away. Visit your sister in Phoenix, maybe. Elena pockets the card, but they both know she won't be leaving. The clinic houses 27 rescue animals currently under her care, and she's never been one to run from danger. I'll be careful, she promises instead. As Carmen drives away, Miguel approaches from the clinic. Everything okay, Doc? Elena watches the police cruiser disappear down the dusty road. Just a heads up about some trouble in the area. Let's make sure all doors stay locked after hours and no one works alone in the clinic. Miguel nods, but his expression reveals he understands there's more to the situation than Elena is sharing. Inside the clinic, the day unfolds with a steady stream of appointments. Vaccinations, minor surgeries, wellness checks. Elena maintains her focus, compartmentalizing the warning as she'd been trained to do during her military years. Shadow and Valor alternate between resting in her office and patrolling the clinic perimeter, a behavior pattern she'd maintained from their active duty days. During a brief lunch break, Elena reviews her clinic security. The cameras cover all approaches to the building, and the alarm system connects directly to the local police station. But she knows these measures would barely slow down cartel enforcers if they decided to come for her. Her hand unconsciously moves to her neck, where her military dog tags still hang beneath her scrubs, another habit she's never abandoned. The weight of them reminds her of who she was before becoming Dr. Reyes. Staff Sergeant Elena Reyes, K9. Combat trainer with 3 tours and 17 successful high-risk operations under her belt. The afternoon brings an unexpected visitor. A black SUV with tinted windows pulls into the parking lot, immediately setting off internal alarms in Elena's mind. Shadow and Valor sense her tension, moving to flanking positions without a command, a behavior pattern they'd perfected in combat zones. A well-dressed man enters, introducing himself as Javier Mendez, a wealthy rancher new to the area. He expresses interest in exotic animal care for his private collection. His questions seem innocent enough, but Elena notices his eyes scanning the clinic layout, lingering too long on security features, showing too little interest in actual veterinary services. My animals require specialized care, he explains smoothly. I've heard you have unique experience with exotic species. Perhaps you could make a house call to my ranch to evaluate their needs. The compensation would be substantial. Every instinct tells Elena this is a probe, the cartel testing her receptiveness, mapping her movements, planning their approach. She provides generic information about exotic animal care, careful to reveal nothing about her military background or specialized training. I don't make house calls to facilities I haven't properly vetted, she replies firmly. I can recommend several resources for exotic animal care if you'd like to leave your contact information. Disappointment flickers across Mendez's face before his smooth veneer returns. Perhaps another time, he says, declining to leave his details before departing. Elena watches through the window as he speaks briefly on his phone before driving away. Shadow and Valor remain on alert, picking up on her unease. Miguel, she calls to her assistant, cancel tomorrow's appointments and refer emergency cases to Dr. Wilson in town. Tell everyone we're doing inventory and deep cleaning. Miguel raises an eyebrow but doesn't question her. He's learned to trust her instincts over the months they've worked together. After the last client leaves, Elena locks the clinic doors and conducts a thorough sweep of the premises, checking windows, testing locks, reviewing camera feeds. The military precision of her movements betrays her background. This isn't her first time preparing for potential danger. She calls Miguel into her office once she's satisfied with the security check. I need to tell you something, she begins, and it's going to sound paranoid. Miguel sits across from her, concern evident on his face. The police visit this morning. There's a cartel targeting veterinarians with specialized skills. 2 are missing already. She keeps her voice steady, factual. Today's visitor wasn't a rancher. He was assessing the clinic, and most likely assessing me. To his credit, Miguel doesn't dismiss her concerns. What do we do? Call the police? And tell them what? That I had a bad feeling about a potential client? Elena shakes her head. Carmen already knows. But without direct threats, there's little they can do. I'm going to stay here tonight, make some preparations. I'll stay too, Miguel offers immediately. No. Her tone leaves no room for argument. Go home to your family. Just be careful, stay alert. If I don't call you by 7 tomorrow morning, contact Officer Diaz directly. She hands him Carmen's card. After Miguel reluctantly leaves, Elena moves to the cabinet behind her desk. The false back swings open to reveal a small safe where she keeps her military-issue sidearm. She hasn't carried it since establishing the clinic, but the weight of it is familiar in her hands. Shadow and Valor watch her with keen interest as she systematically prepares the clinic for a potential intrusion. She activates additional security, protocols on her phone, measures she installed but never expected to use. Military habit, she had told herself then, excessive precaution. Now she's grateful for that foresight. As sunset casts long shadows across the desert landscape, Elena runs Shadow and Valor through a series of silent command drills, hand signals, and body positions that activate their specialized training. To the casual observer, it might appear she's simply exercising her pets, but each movement reinforces years of tactical response conditioning. Guard, she whispers, and both dogs immediately move to predetermined positions, Shadow taking the front entrance, Valor covering the rear exit. Their relaxed demeanor transforms instantly, alert and focused, without appearing aggressive. It's what made them exceptional military assets, their ability to shift from friendly companions to lethal protectors without visible warning signs. Elena secures the most vulnerable rescue animals in the interior kennels, places emergency medical supplies in strategic locations throughout the clinic, and prepares the safe room with provisions. Anticipation rather than fear drives her methodical preparations, another remnant of her military training. As night falls completely, Elena settles into her office with clear sightlines to both clinic entrances, dogs positioned at strategic points. She doesn't expect an immediate threat. Cartels typically observe longer, establish patterns, identify weaknesses before making their move. But underestimating enemies was never her style. Her phone buzzes with a text from Carmen. "Patrol car will drive by every hour. Stay safe." Elena appreciates the gesture, knowing it wouldn't deter determined cartel operatives, but might provide critical response time if needed. She replies with a simple thanks before returning her attention to the security camera feeds displayed on her tablet. The night passes in tense vigilance. Elena catches brief periods of rest while one dog remains on active watch, rotating their duty through the dark hours. By dawn, the immediate sense of threat has diminished, though her tactical awareness remains heightened. She texts Miguel, "All clear, opening at noon today." The morning routine proceeds with enhanced caution. Elena exercises Shadow and Valor at different times than usual, varies her movements around the property, keeps the clinic doors locked, even during daylight hours. Hypervigilance is exhausting but necessary until she can develop a more sustainable security protocol. Miguel arrives promptly at 11, concern evident on his face, until he sees Elena calmly preparing medications for the day's reduced appointment schedule. "Everything okay?" he asks, scanning the clinic for signs of disturbance. "Quiet night," Elena confirms. "But we're maintaining precautions. New check-in procedure for clients. Call from the parking lot. We verify and unlock the door individually. No walk-ins." Miguel nods, accepting the new protocol without question. As he helps prepare examination rooms, Elena notices his frequent glances toward the windows and parking area. Her tension has affected him, despite her efforts to project calm confidence. "Miguel," she says gently, "if you're uncomfortable with the situation, I completely understand. You can take some time off until things settle." He straightens, something hardening in his expression. "My cousin was killed 3 years ago when the cartels moved into his town in Sonora. He wasn't involved in anything illegal, just owned a repair shop they wanted to use for their operations. I'm not going anywhere, Dr. Reyes." Elena sees the determination behind his words, recognizing the same resolve that drove many of the soldiers she'd served alongside. "All right then, but we do this my way, carefully, methodically, no unnecessary risks." The afternoon passes with a handful of appointments, regular clients who notice the heightened security but don't question it. Small-town dynamics mean they've likely already heard rumors about veterinarians going missing, even if the official news hasn't covered the story. Carmen calls mid-afternoon. "Agent Walker wants to meet with you. He's gathering information on potential targets in the region." Elena agrees to a meeting after clinic hours. When the DEA agent arrives, he brings satellite images showing cartel movement across the border, pattern analyses of veterinarian abductions, and intelligence reports on the Serpent cartel's expanding operations. "They're establishing a major dogfighting operation," Walker explains, spreading photos across her desk. High-stakes gambling, international betting pools. They're bringing in fighting dogs from across Central America, breeding programs, training compounds. But they're losing valuable animals without proper veterinary care. So they're acquiring vets, Elena concludes. Forcibly recruiting, Walker corrects. Dr. Sorensen was found yesterday, or rather, his body was. He apparently refused to cooperate. The implication hangs heavy in the air. Dr. Alvarez might still be alive if he's providing the services they demand. Your background makes you particularly valuable to them, Walker continues. Military canine training experience, exotic animal specialization, combat zone medical experience. You're not just a potential vet for them. You could be forced to help train their fighting dogs. The thought makes Elena's stomach turn. She dedicated her life to developing the potential of working dogs, creating unbreakable bonds between handlers and canines, built on trust and mutual respect. The idea of applying those skills to train animals for blood sport is abhorrent. We can offer protection, Walker says, but resources are stretched thin. Witness protection is an option, but would require relocation. Elena glances at Shadow and Valor, resting but alert near her desk. Abandoning her clinic and the rescued animals under her care isn't an option she's willing to consider. I appreciate the offer, Agent Walker, but this is my home. These animals depend on me. Her resolve strengthens. I'm not without resources of my own. Walker studies her for a long moment, clearly weighing whether to push harder for protective custody. Finally, he hands her a secure phone. Direct line. Any suspicious activity, any concerns at all, you call immediately. We have rapid response teams, but distance is still a factor out here. After Walker leaves, Elena conducts another security sweep before settling in for another night at the clinic. The reality of her situation is becoming clearer. She can either abandon everything she's built or prepare to defend it. For someone with her background, it's not really a choice at all. The next morning brings a deceptive calm. Elena maintains irregular patterns, varies her routes to supply runs, keeps Shadow and Valor on rotating security details. Miguel adopts her cautious protocols, demonstrating a surprising aptitude for security awareness. 3 days pass without incident. The heightened vigilance begins to feel sustainable, integrated into the clinic's daily operations. Perhaps, Elena thinks, the cartel has identified easier targets, or the increased DEA presence in the region has temporarily disrupted their operations. This fragile new normal shatters on the 4th day. Elena is performing a routine examination on a rancher's horse when Miguel bursts into the stable area, his face ashen. Dr. Reyes, you need to see this. He holds out his phone, displaying a local news article. Veterinary technician abducted, clinic destroyed in apparent cartel action. The victim worked at a clinic in Las Cruces, just 70 miles west. They're working their way through the region, Elena realizes, scanning the article details. The technician had specialized training in exotic animal care, not a veterinarian, but skilled enough to provide basic services for fighting animals. Cartel is adapting its strategy, widening its target parameters. Elena immediately calls Agent Walker, who confirms the DEA is investigating the latest abduction. We're shifting resources to your area, he tells her. Our intelligence suggests the Serpent cartel is planning something major this weekend, a fighting event that's drawing buyers from across the border. They need medical personnel. As Elena ends the call, the clinic's security system sends an alert to her phone, motion detected at the rear perimeter. She quickly accesses the camera feed. to see a delivery truck parked behind the clinic, an unmarked white van with two men in uniform approaching the back entrance. "Miguel," she calls calmly. "We have visitors. I don't recall scheduling any deliveries. Today." He checks the appointment system. Nothing on the calendar. Elena's military instincts surge to the forefront. "Security Protocol 3, she says quietly. The code they'd established for potential threat situations. Miguel nods, immediately moving to secure the interior clinic doors while Elena signals Shadow and Valor to alert positions. Their bodies, hence ears forward, completely focused on her commands. Through the camera feed, Elena watches the men reach the back door. They carry clipboards and what appear to be delivery boxes, maintaining the appearance of legitimate couriers. One rings the bell while the other positions himself to the side of the door, a tactical formation that raises immediate red flags. "Dr. Reyes," calls a voice through the intercom. "Delivery from Central Medical Supply." Elena doesn't respond, watching carefully through the feed as the men exchange glances. Their body language shifts subtly, becoming more alert, more focused. On their surroundings, behavior inconsistent with routine delivery personnel, but familiar to Elena from her combat experience. "Delivery for Dr. Reyes," the man calls again, more insistently. When no response comes, he nods to his partner who returns to the van, presumably for additional equipment. Elena quickly accesses all external camera feeds, noting a third man now. Visible in the driver's seat of the van, the tactical situation is deteriorating rapidly. 3 confirmed hostiles, possibly more inside the vehicle, using a delivery pretense to gain entry. "Miguel," she says calmly, "take the emergency exit to your left, get to your vehicle, and drive directly to the police station. Do not stop for anyone." He hesitates. "What about you and the animals? I'll handle it. Go now." Her tone leaves no room for argument. As Miguel slips out through the side emergency exit, Elena activates the clinic's lockdown protocol from her phone. Metal shutters begin descending over windows. Reinforced bolts engage on all external doors. The delivery men immediately abandon their pretense, one rushing back to the van while the other attempts to force the back door before the security measures completely engage. Elena moves quickly to the safe room, Shadow and Valor flanking her closely, responding to her hand signals with military precision. Inside the reinforced space, she accesses the clinic's full security feed, watching as the men abandon the delivery disguise entirely. They retrieve weapons from the van, professional-grade, military-style rifles that confirm Elena's worst suspicions. This is no opportunistic attempt. This is a planned tactical extraction. She retrieves her sidearm from the safe, checks it with practiced efficiency, and positions herself with clear sightlines to the safe room's entrance. Shadow and Valor take up defensive positions without verbal commands, their bodies coiled with controlled energy, waiting for her signal. Through the security feed, Elena watches the men attempt to breach the clinic's defenses. They're methodical, professional, not common cartel thugs, but trained operators. They identify and disable the external cameras one by one, but not before Elena gets clear images of their faces. She sends the security footage to both Agent Walker and Carmen, along with a text. "Clinic under attack. 3 armed individuals, Miguel en route to station." The response is immediate. Carmen, "Units dispatched, ETA 8 minutes. Walker, "Response team alerted, hold position if possible, 8 minutes. In tactical situations, 8 minutes is an eternity." The Men have identified the clinic's security measures and are adapting their approach. One returns to the van, emerging with what appears to be breaching equipment. They're preparing to force entry regardless of the reinforced doors. Elena's military training takes over completely. She analyzes her tactical options with detached precision. The safe room will likely withstand initial breach attempts, but she can't assume it will hold indefinitely against determined, well-equipped attackers. The clinic houses 27 rescue animals that cannot be abandoned. Miguel should have reached the police station by now, but rural response times remain a significant factor. All factors considered, a defensive position is her best option. Hold out for law enforcement arrival, maintain control of the safe room, protect the animals. Through the security feed, she watches the men position breaching charges on the rear clinic door. The explosion is muffled inside the safe room, but the security system alerts show perimeter breach. They're inside the clinic now. Elena removes her white coat, revealing the tactical clothing she's worn underneath since the first warning from Carmen. Another military habit that now serves a crucial purpose. She checks her weapon one last time. Shadow. Valor, she whispers, making eye contact with each dog in turn. Guard. The Belgian Malinois respond instantly, their bodies transforming from alert companions to combat-ready assets, their training now fully activated. Everything in their posture communicates their lethal capability. A transformation that few outside military K9 units ever witness. Through the interior cameras, Elena tracks the men's movement through her clinic. They clear rooms systematically, tactically, further confirmation of their professional training. They're searching for her methodically, checking each potential hiding place. When they reach the kennels, one man gestures toward the howling rescue dogs, making a dismissive motion. The implication is clear. These animals are not their concern. Her phone vibrates with an update from Carmen. Units 3 minutes out. SWAT mobilizing. 3 minutes might be enough if the men don't locate the safe room entrance before then. Elena watches as they continue their search, moving closer to the hidden door, disguised as a storage cabinet in her office. The lead operative pauses at her desk, examining the military service photo she keeps there. Elena in combat fatigues with Shadow, and Valor as younger dogs. His expression changes, apparently recognizing the tactical significance of her military background. He gestures urgently to his companions, their movements becoming more focused, more urgent. They've realized she's not just a veterinarian. Their approach will adjust accordingly. The lead operative speaks into a radio, likely calling for backup or reporting the complication. This works in Elena's favor. Any delay increases the chance of law enforcement arrival before they breach the safe room. But her advantage is short-lived. One of the men notices the subtle differences in the wall construction near the hidden entrance. He runs his hand along the seam, identifying the concealed door. A quick exchange between the operators, and they position themselves for breaching, weapons raised. Elena moves to her final defensive position, Shadow and Valor tensed beside her, ready to respond to her commands. 3 armed men against 1 woman would typically be overwhelming odds, but Elena is no ordinary target, and her companions are no ordinary dogs. "Find her," a voice commands from outside the safe room. "We need her alive." Elena calculates angles, mentally maps the room's layout, anticipates entry points. More military training surfacing, combat instincts that never truly fade. As the first sounds of metal against the reinforced door echo through the safe room, distant sirens become audible. Law enforcement is approaching, but not yet close enough. The men accelerate their efforts, abandoning subtlety for brute force against the hidden entrance. The reinforced door begins to show stress points under their coordinated attack. Elena's breathing remains steady, controlled. She positions herself optimally, Shadow and Valor at precise tactical intervals. Years of combat zone experience narrow her focus to absolute clarity. These men expect to find a frightened veterinarian hiding in a panic room. Instead, they're about to confront a military canine trainer in a carefully prepared defensive position with 2 combat-trained Belgian Malinois ready to execute attacks with lethal precision. The safe room door begins to give way under the sustained assault. Elena makes final adjustments to her position, weapon ready. Shadow and Valor's muscles tense in perfect synchronization, their training evident in every controlled movement. "Breach in 3, comes a voice from outside. 2, 1. The door crashes inward, and the first man enters, weapons sweeping the room. But Elena and her companions are no longer in his expected field of fire. Years of tactical training have positioned them precisely where first entry operators rarely look. "Now!" Elena commands, her voice cold and controlled. Shadow and Valor launch with explosive power, years of military training manifesting in perfectly executed combat maneuvers. Before the intruders can adjust their position, before they can bring weapons to bear in the confined space, 80 pounds of precisely trained muscle and teeth impact their primary targets. The cartel had made a catastrophic mistake. They hadn't kidnapped a simple veterinarian. They'd attempted to abduct a combat veteran K9 trainer who had prepared for their arrival and whose loyal companions were executing the military attack protocols they'd been perfecting for years. As sirens scream into the clinic parking lot, Elena knows this is just the beginning. The cartel will learn of their failed attempt. They'll adapt their approach, reassess their tactics, perhaps escalate their efforts. But they've revealed their hand now, confirmed their intentions. And Elena Reyes has never backed down from a fight, especially one where the lives of innocent animals hang in the balance. Through the clinic's front windows, police cruisers screech to a halt, officers deploying with weapons drawn. Agent Walker's SUV pulls in seconds later, DEA tactical teams spreading out to secure the perimeter. The battle has been joined. The war for Sierra Vista has just begun. Elena hurries through the clinic's side entrance, Shadow and Valor at her heels. The morning's sudden chaos after a week of tense waiting has triggered her combat reflexes. The cartel's failed abduction attempt has changed everything. They've revealed their desperation and their tactics. Agent Walker surveys the damage to her clinic, stepping carefully around the unconscious cartel operatives now in custody. "You handled this professionally," he says, a note of respect in his voice as he observes the precision of the takedown. But they'll escalate now. The Serpent cartel doesn't tolerate failure. Elena watches as paramedics treat the injuries inflicted by Shadow and Valor, severe but non-lethal, exactly as their training specified. "I'm not leaving my patients," she states firmly, already calculating what additional security measures she'll need. "These aren't street thugs, Dr. Reyes," Walker emphasizes. "Javier Mendez, your visitor from earlier this week, he's Diego Vargas' lieutenant, the cartel's animal fighting operation manager. If he personally scouted you, this goes higher than we initially thought." Carmen approaches from where she's been coordinating with the local officers. "Elena, I've got 2 patrol cars stationed outside, but the department can't maintain that indefinitely. The county's resources are already stretched, dealing with 3 separate cartel incidents this week." "I understand. Elena's voice remains steady despite the implications. She turns to Miguel, who looks shaken but resolute after his dash to the police station. "We need to relocate the critical care animals immediately. Call Dr. Wilson, see if she can take the post-surgical cases." Miguel nods and moves to make the call, his earlier fear now transformed into focused determination. Elena turns back to Agent Walker. "How much time do we have before they try again?" "Hours, not days," Walker answers honestly. "We've received intelligence that their fighting event is scheduled for tomorrow night. They need veterinary support urgently." Elena processes this information with military efficiency. "Then we use their urgency against them. They've shown their hand. Now they'll be expecting heightened security, which means their next approach will be more aggressive, less subtle." "You sound like you're planning a counter-operation rather than an evacuation," Walker observes, studying her with new interest. "Your file mentioned combat experience, but downplayed your tactical training. 3 tours with K9 combat units tends to teach you a few things about anticipating enemy movements." Elena checks her watch. "I need 4 hours to stabilize and relocate the critical patients. After that, I'll accept your protection, but on my terms." Walker raises an eyebrow. "Which are?" "I want to help recover Dr. Alvarez if he's still alive. The cartel needs veterinary support desperately enough to risk a daylight abduction attempt. That gives us leverage and opportunity," Carmen interjects. "Elena, that's not how witness protection works. You can't volunteer to be cartel bait." "I'm not suggesting a lone operation," Elena clarifies. "But your task force needs information on their fighting ring location. I have something they want badly enough to risk exposure." Walker's expression shifts as he considers the tactical possibilities. "You're suggesting a controlled operation." "I'm suggesting we use their desperation to our advantage," Elena corrects. "They'll come again, whether I'm here or in Phoenix. At least this way, we choose the battlefield." 3 hours later, the clinic has been transformed. The most vulnerable animals have been relocated to Dr. Wilson's facility in town. The remaining rescue animals, those stable enough for transport but not requiring immediate veterinary supervision, have been temporarily moved to Carmen's brother's ranch outside town. The clinic itself now houses only Shadow and Valor Elena and a small DEA tactical team disguised as clinic staff. "Your dogs seem remarkably calm for all this activity," observes Agent Torres, Walker's second in command, as Shadow maintains his watchful position by the window without exhibiting stress behaviors. "They were deployed in active combat zones," Elena explains, checking the security feeds on her tablet. "Chaos is familiar territory for them. It's peaceful suburbia that took more adjustment." Walker returns from coordinating with his field teams. "We've identified increased cartel movement crossing the border. 3 vehicles matching known Serpent cartel transport descriptions passed through Las Cruces 2 hours ago. They're mobilizing." Elena examines the building schematics Walker has spread across her desk, where DEA intelligence has marked probable locations for the dogfighting operation. "These ranches here and here," she points to 2 remote properties, "have the necessary isolation, but the water requirements for maintaining multiple fighting dogs would be substantial. Their water rights purchases would create documentation." Walker looks impressed. "That's exactly what our analysts determined. We've narrowed it to this property, the old Hernandez Ranch. Satellite imagery shows new construction, increased vehicle activity, and they've dug 3 new wells in the past month. That's where they're holding Dr. Alvarez if he's still alive," Elena concludes. What's your plan for the raid? We don't have enough for a warrant yet. These cartels have gotten sophisticated about maintaining plausible deniability. We need confirmation of illegal activity before we can move, which is where your idea comes in. Elena traces the route from her clinic to the suspected ranch. They'll try again tonight. After failing once, they'll send more men, better equipped. But they still need me alive and functional. We'll have plainclothes officers positioned throughout the area, Carmen adds. DEA tactical teams in concealed locations. The moment they make their move, we can track them. No, Elena shakes her head. They'll be watching for exactly that response. You won't get close enough to follow without being spotted. She points to Shadow and Valor, who remain alert at their posts. But they won't be looking for tracking devices on a veterinarian they plan to abduct. Walker exchanges glances with Torres. You want to let them take you? I want to let them think they're taking me, Elena corrects. With proper preparation and backup, it's our best chance to locate their operation and potentially save Dr. Alvarez. Absolutely not, Carmen protests. The risk is unacceptable. The Serpent cartel executes witnesses, Carmen, Elena counters. Even with protection, they'd eventually find me. My animals would never be safe. This ends now, on our terms, or it never ends. The debate continues for another hour before Walker reluctantly agrees to Elena's plan, with significant modifications and safety protocols. The improvised operation takes shape with military precision. Tracking devices disguised as ordinary veterinary tools, subdermal locators inserted into Elena's arm under the guise of routine vaccination, communications equipment hidden in plain sight. By dusk, the clinic has been prepared. Surveillance has identified 2 cartel vehicles conducting reconnaissance of the area. The trap is set. Last chance to reconsider, Walker says as his team makes final preparations. Once they have you, we can't guarantee immediate intervention without risking your life. Elena checks Shadow and Valor one last time, ensuring their specialized equipment is properly concealed within what appears to be standard service dog vests. To untrained eyes, they look like ordinary support animals, not the lethal combat assets they truly are. I spent 5 years teaching these dogs to protect military personnel in the most hostile environments on Earth, she replies calmly. Trust me, Agent Walker, the cartel should be more worried about their safety than mine. As night falls completely, Elena enacts the final stage of their plan. She makes a visible show of sending the apparent clinic staff home, leaving herself seemingly alone with her dogs. The surveillance cameras, now feeding directly to the DEA, mobile command center parked 3 blocks away, capture her normal evening routine as she checks on the remaining animals and secures exterior doors. Movement at the east perimeter. Walker's voice comes through her concealed earpiece. 2 vehicles approaching from different directions. 4 heat signatures in the first vehicle, 3 in the second. Elena acknowledges with a subtle hand signal toward one of the hidden cameras. 7 cartel operatives, significantly more than their first attempt. They're taking no chances this time. She positions herself in the main examination room, Shadow and Valor beside her, as she apparently reviews medical charts. A perfect target of opportunity. Through the building's sensors, she tracks the cartel team's approach. Their movements are more coordinated this time, more professional. They cut the power first, not realizing the clinic's security systems have redundant power sources installed during Elena's recent upgrades. The cartel team breaches through both the front and rear entrances simultaneously, using noise suppressors on their weapons. Elena continues reviewing her charts, portraying the perfect image of an unsuspecting target as the intruders move efficiently through the darkened clinic. When they reach the examination room, Elena looks up with exactly the right amount of startled fear, her acting convincing enough to momentarily relax the lead operative's vigilance. "Dr. Reyes," the man says in accented English, his weapon trained on her. "You will come with us now. Cooperate, and you will not be harmed." Elena raises her hands slowly, portraying compliant fear. "What do you want from me?" "Your veterinary skills are required. You have 2 minutes to collect essential medical supplies." The leader gestures to one of his men, who tosses a duffel bag at her feet. "Fill it. Any attempt to call for help or resist will end badly." Elena nods shakily, moving to the medical cabinets where she begins selecting supplies. Antibiotics, surgical equipment, pain management medications, all items that would be essential for treating injured fighting dogs. Her selections confirm their suspicions about the cartel's operations, while simultaneously gathering intelligence on what conditions she might find at their facility. "The dogs stay here," another operative states firmly, eyeing Shadow and Valor, who have maintained disciplined calm despite the armed intruders, a testament to their advanced training. "They're service animals," Elena counters, her voice intentionally timid. "I have anxiety disorder. They're medically necessary for me to function." She reaches slowly into her pocket and produces falsified service animal documentation prepared by the DEA. "Please, I can't work without them." The team leader examines the documents suspiciously while Elena continues gathering supplies, her movements deliberately uncertain, non-threatening. They will be restrained at all times, he finally decides, calculating that forcing the issue might make her less cooperative for their medical needs. If the dogs show any aggression, they will be shot immediately. Elena nods quickly, projecting relief and fear in carefully measured amounts. They're trained service animals. They won't cause any problems. The abduction proceeds with chilling efficiency. Elena's hands are zip-tied loosely in front of her, tight enough to appear secure, but leaving her enough mobility for medical work. Shadow and Valor are leashed and muzzled with standard-looking restraints that nevertheless have been specially modified to release with a specific command word. They escort her to a waiting SUV with blacked-out windows. One operative blindfolds her, while another secures Shadow and Valor in the rear cargo area. The vehicles depart in separate directions, a standard counter-surveillance technique to identify potential pursuit. Through her subdermal tracker, Walker's team monitors her movement while maintaining a discreet distance. The cartel convoy executes several route changes and false turns before finally heading toward the suspected Hernandez Ranch location. Inside the vehicle, Elena maintains her frightened veterinarian persona while mentally mapping their journey through subtle sensory cues, road surface changes, elevation shifts, the sound of cattle gates. Her military training had included extensive counter-abduction protocols, including how to track movement while blindfolded. After approximately 40 minutes, the vehicle slows and turns onto an unpaved road. Elena feels the shift in terrain and hears the sound of multiple guards communicating as they pass through what must be a security checkpoint. Her suspicions are confirmed when her blindfold is removed minutes later, revealing a heavily guarded compound centered around what was once the main ranch house, but has been significantly modified. "Welcome to your new workplace, Dr. Reyes," the team leader announces as armed guards escort her from the vehicle. "Cooperate with Mr. Varga's requirements, and your stay might even be comfortable." Elena takes in her surroundings with careful observation, disguised as fearful glances. The compound is larger than DEA intelligence had indicated, with multiple outbuildings converted for various purposes. She notes guard positions, camera placements, and potential weaknesses in their security setup, all valuable intelligence for the eventual DEA raid. Shadow and Valor are removed from the vehicle, still muzzled and leashed. The guards eye them warily, despite their apparently docile behavior. Elena knows her dogs are cataloging every detail of the compound, just as she is, a behavior pattern. She'd specifically trained into them for combat reconnaissance missions. They escort her to what appears to be a converted barn structure, the sounds from inside confirming her suspicions about its purpose. When the doors open, the scene validates the DEA's worst fears. Rows of cages containing fighting dogs of various breeds, many bearing fresh wounds and signs of mistreatment. The facility is professionally equipped with training areas, medical stations, and what appears to be a central fighting pit. At a medical table near the center of the barn, Elena recognizes Dr. Marco Alvarez. The veterinarian looks exhausted and shows signs of physical abuse, but is alive, treating an injured pit bull with shaking hands. "Your colleague has been most uncooperative," the team leader informs her. "Perhaps you will demonstrate better judgment." As they lead her toward Alvarez, a distinguished-looking man in his 50s enters from a side office. His expensive clothing and the immediate deference shown by the guards identify him immediately. Diego Varga, she thinks, recognizing the cartel's animal fighting operation leader from DEA briefing photos. Dr. Reyes, Varga greets her with unsettling politeness. "I apologize for the dramatic introduction, but we have urgent need of your expertise. Several valuable animals require treatment before tomorrow's event." Elena maintains her frightened facade while surveying the operation with concealed military assessment. Approximately 20 guards visible, multiple fighting dogs that could potentially be released as weapons, 3 primary exits from the main structure. The compound's isolation would make any rescue attempt challenging without creating a potential hostage situation. "What do you want from me?" she asks, her voice appropriately tremulous. "Simply your professional services," Varga responds smoothly. "Treat our animals, ensure they are in peak condition for competition, and you will be well compensated. Refuse." He gestures toward Alvarez, whose bruised face tells its own story. Elena allows her gaze to move over the injured animals, her genuine distress at their condition requiring no acting. "I'll need proper equipment, medications. These animals need—" "You will find everything necessary," Varga interrupts. "We have spared no expense for our champions." He signals to a guard who removes her zip ties. "Your service animals may remain with you while you work, but they will stay muzzled. My men are authorized to shoot them at the first sign of aggression." Elena rubs her wrists, playing the role of terrified but compliant captive while she calculates timing, distances, and tactical options. The DEA will have her location confirmed by now, but a frontal assault on a compound this well defended would be catastrophic for both the human and animal hostages. "I understand," she says quietly. "I just want to help the animals." Varga studies her for a moment, then nods with satisfaction. "Begin with the champions in the priority area. They compete tomorrow night." As guards escort her deeper into the facility, Elena catches Dr. Alvarez's eye. She gives him the slightest nod, a promise that help is coming, that his ordeal will soon end. He blinks rapidly in response, hope flickering across his exhausted face. The priority area contains 6 dogs with recent injuries requiring immediate attention. Elena requests her medical supplies and begins treatment. Her veterinary concern genuine, even as her military mind continues mapping the facility and identifying potential extraction routes. Shadow and Valor remain close, their muzzled presence appearing to provide emotional support to the frightened veterinarian. Only Elena recognizes the subtle signals in their ear positions and muscle tension that indicate they're cataloging threats and awaiting her command. Hours pass as Elena treats the injured animals, gaining the guards' growing confidence with her apparent cooperation. She works methodically, moving between cases while mentally tracking guard rotations and security patterns. When occasionally left alone with Alvarez, they exchange whispered information. "They have another veterinarian at a second facility," he murmurs, while they examine a wounded mastiff together. "Dr. Sorensen wasn't killed. They're keeping him at their breeding compound about 5 miles east of here." Elena absorbs this critical intelligence while maintaining her focus on the animal before her. How many guards at night? Any change in routine? Fewer after midnight. 4 inside, maybe 6 on perimeter. They bring fighting dogs from the other facility on event days. Alvarez's hands tremble slightly as he hands her surgical thread. They're expecting over 100 spectators tomorrow. High rollers from both sides of the border. This information confirms what Walker had suspected. This isn't just a dogfighting operation, but a major cartel networking event disguised as underground entertainment. The DEA would need substantial forces for an effective raid. As dawn approaches, Elena has treated all priority cases and gained valuable insight into the compound's operations. Varga returns to check her progress, pleased with her apparent compliance. "You see, Dr. Reyes, cooperation makes everything simpler." He reviews her work with knowledgeable eyes, confirming Elena's suspicion that his interest in dogfighting isn't merely financial, but personal. "Your quarters have been prepared. You will rest now, then continue treating the remaining animals before tomorrow's event." Guards escort her to a small room attached to the main barn. Basic accommodations with a cot, bathroom facilities, and a locked door. Shadow and Valor are permitted to stay with her, still muzzled, but otherwise unrestrained within the confined space. Once alone, Elena conducts a careful sweep for surveillance devices, finding 2 cameras with audio capability, exactly what she expected. She makes a show of collapsing onto the cot in exhaustion, her body language communicating defeat and compliance. In reality, her mind races with strategic assessment. The compound's security is professional, but not impenetrable. Their confidence in controlling her through the threat to Alvarez and her dogs has led to small lapses in protocol, guards standing slightly too close, weapons sometimes held carelessly, security codes entered within her line of sight. Most importantly, they've underestimated Shadow and Valor completely, seeing them only as emotional support animals rather than the highly trained combat assets they truly are. Even muzzled, her dogs represent her greatest tactical advantage. Elena feigns sleep while continuing to monitor guard rotations through Shadow and Valor's subtle responses to sounds outside their room. The dogs' heightened senses provide early warning of approaching personnel, allowing her to maintain her vulnerable facade whenever the door opens for guard checks. While apparently sleeping, she systematically flexes and contracts muscle groups, a military technique for maintaining readiness during forced inactivity. The DEA will be planning their approach based on the intelligence she's gathered, but Elena knows she needs to be prepared to create opportunity if necessary. Hours later, she's awakened from genuine rest by increased activity outside her door. The sound of vehicles arriving and men shouting orders indicates preparation for the evening's event is underway. When guards bring food and water, she projects appropriate fearfulness while observing their changed demeanor. More rushed, less attentive to security protocols. "You will prepare the competition animals in 1 hour," a guard informs her. Mr. Varga wants all champions ready before guests arrive. Elena nods compliance, noting the guard's distraction and the walkie-talkie communications indicating security. Personnel are being redistributed to accommodate incoming traffic. The increased activity creates both challenges and opportunities. When escorted back to the main facility, she finds controlled chaos as the barn transforms into an exhibition and gambling venue. Workers set up seating around the central pit, while other areas are curtained off to hide the more obvious signs of animal mistreatment from casual observers. Dr. Alvarez looks even more haggard than before, having apparently been denied rest. "They're bringing the champions from the other facility," he whispers while they prepare surgical kits, including Matador. Elena recognizes the name from DEA briefings, the cartel's prized fighting dog, reportedly undefeated and valued at over $1 million. Varga's personal champion. "How many handlers with the transport?" she asks quietly, assessing potential changes to the security profile. "Usually 4, plus drivers. They'll arrive last, just before the fights begin." This information confirms what Elena has suspected. The priority period for DEA intervention would be during the event itself, when security would be divided between managing guests and maintaining control of the animals. Through her concealed communication device, she's been transmitting crucial intelligence with subtle movements and predetermined code phrases. The DEA now has comprehensive understanding of the compound layout, security positions, and event timeline. As evening approaches, the facility transforms into a grotesque spectacle of wealth and cruelty. Expensive vehicles begin arriving, disgorging well-dressed spectators who place large cash bets on the upcoming fights. Elena continues treating animals while tracking the changing security dynamics as guards split attention between monitoring her and managing the growing crowd. Shadow and Valor remain constant presences at her side, their seemingly docile behavior causing guards to grow increasingly complacent about their muzzles and restraints. Only Elena recognizes their poised readiness beneath the calm exterior. Combat assets awaiting deployment. Just before the main event is scheduled to begin, Varga approaches with a distinguished-looking guest. Dr. Reyes, a final check on Matador before his championship bout. This is an important showcase for our distinguished visitor from Mexico City. Elena recognizes the visitor immediately from DEA intelligence photos. Raul Escobar, one of the Serpent cartel's highest-ranking leaders, rarely seen in person at operational locations. His presence confirms the event's significance goes far beyond dogfighting. This is a major cartel business gathering disguised as entertainment. As she examines Matador, a massive, scarred animal with unmistakable signs of both physical abuse and pharmaceutical enhancement, Elena recognizes the moment of maximum opportunity approaching. Security is divided, cartel leadership is present, And the facility is filled with witnesses whose testimonies could destroy the organization's operations throughout the region. The DEA will be monitoring the arrival of high-value targets, preparing for optimal intervention. Elena knows her role now is to remain in position, continue gathering intelligence, and be ready to create distraction or advantage when the raid begins. What the cartel doesn't realize is that they haven't merely kidnapped a veterinarian with military experience. They've placed a highly trained combat specialist with 2 elite military working dogs directly in the center of their operation. A tactical error that will soon prove catastrophic to their entire enterprise. As Varga leads Escobar away to prepare for the first fight, Elena exchanges the briefest glance with Shadow and Valor. The dog's eyes reflect complete readiness, muscles tensed beneath their service vests. Years of specialized training have prepared them for precisely this moment. The cartel's greatest vulnerability isn't in their security perimeter or weapons. It's in their fundamental misunderstanding of exactly who and what they've brought into their midst. They see a frightened veterinarian and her emotional support animals. But within that carefully constructed facade waits a military K9 unit commander with her combat-trained assets, positioned at the heart of the cartel's operation, ready to execute the most important mission of their lives. The first fight is about to begin, and with it, the cartel's day of reckoning. The first fight is announced with a flourish by Varga himself, standing at the edge of the central pit, surrounded by eager spectators. Elena watches from her designated position among the handlers, maintaining her facade of fearful compliance while assessing the rapidly evolving tactical situation. Dozens of wealthy spectators crowd the makeshift arena, their attention fixed on the fighting pit where 2 damaged animals are being prepared for combat. The air pulses with anticipation and greed as betting intensifies. Cash and whispered wages flowing freely between cartel associates and their distinguished guests. Elena's gaze meets Dr. Alvarez's across the preparation area, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. Both veterinarians understand the horrors they're witnessing, but only Elena knows that salvation is imminent. Her concealed communications device has been transmitting crucial intelligence throughout the evening, providing DEA tactical teams with real-time updates on the facility's layout, security positions, and high-value targets. Commencement in 5 minutes, a guard announces, prompting handlers to make final preparations for the first pair of fighting dogs. Elena subtly checks Shadow and Valor's positions. The Belgian Malinois maintain their perfect cover as service animals, their lethal capabilities completely disguised by their calm demeanor and apparent submission. Only Elena can recognize the predatory focus in their eyes as they systematically track guard movements and catalog potential threats. Dr. Reyes, Varga approaches with calculated cordiality. Our champion matador shows signs of tension. Ensure he's in optimal condition before his exhibition. Our distinguished guests have placed significant wagers on his performance. Elena nods with practiced deference. I'll check him immediately. As she moves toward Matador's holding area, Elena catalogs the changing security dynamics. The increased activity has redistributed guards, creating gaps in their coverage. More importantly, their attention has shifted from monitoring her to managing the growing crowd of cartel affiliates and wealthy spectators. Through her veterinary examination of Matador, Elena confirms what she'd suspected. The prized fighting Dog has been subjected to pharmaceutical enhancement, his aggression artificially heightened through chemical manipulation. The discovery strengthens her resolve. These animals aren't willing combatants, but victims of systemic abuse. All security units status report, crackles a command over a nearby guard's radio, allowing Elena to track their deployment around the compound. With practiced subtlety, she transmits this information through her concealed communications device, knowing Walker's team will be finalizing their approach vectors. The raid timing will be critical. Too early, and they risk hostage situations. Too late, and evidence could be destroyed once the fights conclude. The crowd roars as the first pair of dogs is brought to the pit, their handlers using shock prods. To heighten aggression, Elena forces herself to maintain her cover despite the revulsion threatening to break through her carefully constructed facade. Every instinct from her years as a veterinarian screams to intervene, but the tactical officer in her knows that individual action now would jeopardize the larger operation. From the corner of her eye, Elena notices Escobar conferring with Varga, both men gesturing toward the VIP area where several newcomers have arrived. The cartel leadership's attention is temporarily diverted, another tactical advantage developing in real time. Our investors are pleased, a guard comments to another nearby, unaware that Elena can hear their conversation. Tomorrow we expand to 3 more facilities across the border. The intelligence confirms what Walker had suspected. This operation extends far beyond a single compound, representing a major expansion of cartel activity in the region. The stakes of tonight's raid have just increased exponentially. As the first fight begins, the crowd's attention fixes on the pit. Elena uses this distraction to position herself strategically near the medical station, where she has access to both the main facility door and the side exit leading to the kennels. Shadow and Valor adjust their positions accordingly, maintaining their non-threatening appearance while optimizing their tactical placement. Through the growing chaos of shouting spectators and barking dogs, Elena detects a subtle change in the compound's security rhythm. Guard communications become slightly more frequent, perimeter reports more insistent. The DEA must be closing, in their presence triggering the cartel's outer security layers. Check the north fence, a security coordinator orders through the radio. Possible sensor malfunction. Elena exchanges the briefest glance with Alvarez, who has also noticed the shift in guard behavior. His expression remains carefully neutral, but hope flickers in his eyes for the first time since her arrival. The first fight concludes with a horrific display of brutality that Elena forces herself to witness impassively. Medical intervention is immediately required for the losing animal, giving her the opportunity to approach the pit area with her supplies. This positioning places her closer to Escobar and the cartel leadership. Optimal placement for when chaos erupts. Second, match begins in 10 minutes, Varga announces, prompting a flurry of new betting activity. Prepare the Gonzalez dog. The announcement sends handlers scrambling, temporarily reducing security coverage around the medical area. Elena uses this moment to transmit a final status update through her concealed device. 3 taps of her finger against the modified veterinary. Tool in her pocket. Target confirmed. Optimal position achieved. Shadow and Valor detect the change in her breathing pattern, a subtle signal established during their military training. Their muscles tense imperceptibly. Combat readiness disguised beneath their service animal vests. We have movement at the east perimeter, a guard reports urgently into his radio, his voice pitched low to avoid alarming the guests. Multiple heat signatures detected. Elena mentally calculates timing and distances. The DEA tactical teams must be in final approach positions. She needs to prepare for the moment when controlled chaos becomes her ally. "Dr. Reyes," Varga calls suddenly, "prepare Matador for immediate exhibition. Our primary investor wishes to see him perform now." The unexpected schedule change creates both challenge and opportunity. Elena acknowledges the order with appropriate subservience while reassessing tactical options. Matador's holding area is further from her planned extraction position, but closer to where Escobar and other high-value targets have gathered. As she moves toward Matador's cage, the facility's perimeter lights suddenly flicker, once, twice, before stabilizing. To the untrained eye, it might appear to be a power fluctuation, but Elena recognizes the telltale sign of the DEA's electronic countermeasures engaging with the compound security systems. "Check the generator," a security coordinator orders, annoyance evident in his voice. "And double the perimeter guards." The adjustment thins interior security further. Exactly the tactical advantage Elena had hoped for. She positions herself beside Matador's cage, noting that from this vantage point, she has direct lines of sight to both Alvarez and the main exits. Shadow and Valor adjust their positions without command, flanking her at precisely calibrated distances. To observers, they appear to be staying close to their anxious owner, but Elena knows they've identified optimal attack vectors based on her positioning. The second pair of fighting dogs is brought toward the pit, their handlers struggling to control their artificially enhanced aggression. The crowd's attention narrows, focused entirely on the spectacle about to unfold. Even the guards find their attention divided between security protocols and the main event. Elena feels the moment approaching, that tactical tipping point when action becomes inevitable. Her body primes itself automatically, muscle memory from years of combat deployments preparing for explosive movement. Through the kenneled dog's increasing agitation, Elena detects what human ears might miss, the faint, rhythmic thump of helicopter. Rotors approaching from the east, still miles out but closing fast. DEA air support positioning for the raid. "Sir," a guard approaches Varga urgently. "We have a situation at the north entrance. Security patrol hasn't reported in." Varga's expression darkens momentarily before he forces a smile for his guests. "Handle it discreetly," he orders. The exhibition continues. Elena watches various cartel lieutenants exchange concerned glances. The security breakdown is becoming apparent to those with tactical awareness, though the civilian guests remain oblivious, caught up in the gambling and spectacle. The perfect moment for intervention is crystallizing, the precise tactical opportunity when maximum confusion can be achieved with minimum risk to hostages and innocent animals. Escobar leans toward Varga, whispering something that causes visible tension. Several bodyguards move closer to the cartel leadership, their attention now divided between external threats and internal security. Elena catches Alvarez's eye from across the room and gives him the slightest nod, the signal they had established earlier. Understanding dawns in his exhausted face. He begins slowly moving toward the nearest group of kenneled dogs, positioning himself to assist with their protection when chaos erupts. A guard's radio crackles with sudden urgency. "Breach at north perimeter! Multiple..." The transmission cuts off abruptly. The compound's alarm system activates with ear-splitting intensity, triggering immediate panic among the spectators and confusion among security personnel. Guards rush to predetermined defensive positions, weapons drawn, their attention now fully diverted from Elena and her seemingly docile service dogs. "Secure the principals," a security coordinator shouts, prompting bodyguards to close ranks around Escobar and other cartel leaders. The moment has arrived. Elena locks eyes with Shadow and Valor, who have maintained perfect position despite the erupting chaos. She speaks a single command word, one that would sound like meaningless comfort to anyone overhearing, but carries specific tactical meaning to her military-trained companions. Vindicate. The transformation is instantaneous and terrifying to behold. The seemingly docile service animals shift into full combat mode, their specialized muzzles releasing with the command word. Years of elite military training manifest in precisely coordinated movement as they launch toward predetermined targets. Shadow taking the nearest armed guard, while Valor creates a security perimeter around Elena. Elena herself moves with explosive speed that shocks nearby handlers. The frightened veterinarian vanishes, replaced by a combat veteran executing a tactical operation with lethal efficiency. She disarms the closest guard with a technique perfected during 3 combat tours, securing his weapon while using his body as momentary cover. "DA down on the ground!" The shout comes from multiple entry points simultaneously as tactical teams breach the facility's main doors, flashbang grenades temporarily disorienting cartel security. Through the erupting chaos, Elena focuses on 2 primary objectives: securing Alvarez and preventing harm to the kenneled animals. She moves through the confusion with practiced precision, Shadow and Valor operating as extensions of her tactical awareness, neutralizing threats before they can target their handler. "Elena!" Alvarez calls out as she reaches him, genuine shock in his voice as he witnesses her transformation from frightened captive to combat operator. "Stay behind me," she instructs, positioning herself between him and the main conflict zone, where DEA tactical teams are engaging cartel security. "When I move, you move, exactly as I do." Gunfire erupts from the VIP area as Escobar's bodyguards engage with advancing federal agents. Elena calculates trajectories and danger zones, plotting the safest extraction route for herself and Alvarez while accounting for the animals' safety. Shadow and Valor operate with flawless coordination, their military training evident in how they systematically clear threats while maintaining protected positions. These are not pets playing at guard duty, but elite combat assets executing years of specialized training. This way, Elena directs Alvarez toward a side exit, where Walker had planned to position an extraction team. "Stay low, move fast." A cartel guard emerges suddenly from behind a storage area, weapon raised toward them. Before Elena can respond, Valor launches with military precision, neutralizing the threat with a targeted attack that incapacitates without killing, exactly as he was trained to do in hostage scenarios. Through her earpiece, now operating at full capacity since the raid began, Elena hears Walker coordinating the operation. Primary targets identified in North Section. Dr. Reyes, confirm position. Moving to extraction point Delta with Alvarez, she responds crisply, the military cadence returning to her voice naturally. Multiple civilian animals in danger zones 3 and 4. Request protection protocol. Acknowledged, Walker confirms. Animal control unit standing by. Proceed to extraction. Elena guides Alvarez through the facility with tactical efficiency, using the chaos to their advantage. Shadow and Valor operate as advance and rear security, their positioning creating a mobile defensive perimeter around the veterinarians. As they approach the extraction point, Elena spots a group of cartel operatives attempting to destroy evidence. Documents and computer equipment related to their broader operation. She transmits this intelligence to Walker while maintaining her primary mission of getting Alvarez to safety. "Elena!" Alvarez gasps as they pause behind cover, waiting for the path to clear. "You're not just a veterinarian. Former military K9 training unit," she confirms briefly. "Tactical extraction specialist." Understanding dawns in his eyes. They had no idea what they were bringing into their operation. Their mistake, Elena agrees, checking her weapon before signaling Shadow to clear their next movement area. A massive explosion rocks the compound's main entrance as cartel reinforcements engage with DEA perimeter teams. The tactical situation is deteriorating rapidly, making their extraction increasingly time-sensitive. "Change of plan," Walker's voice comes through her earpiece. "Primary extraction compromised. Move to secondary point, east compound fence. Helicopter inbound." Elena quickly recalculates their route, identifying potential choke points and danger areas. "Understood. Moving now." She guides Alvarez through a service corridor, using her memory of the compound layout to avoid the heaviest conflict zones. Shadow takes point position, while Valor guards their rear, both dogs demonstrating the situational awareness that made them exceptional military assets. They encounter two more cartel guards, attempting to secure the kenneled animals, likely seeing them as valuable assets to preserve. Elena neutralizes the first, with practiced efficiency, while Valor takes down the second, allowing them to continue toward the extraction point without raising broader alarm. Through windows along their route, Elena observes the DEA operation unfolding across the compound. Tactical teams have secured the main arena and VIP areas, though significant resistance continues from entrenched cartel positions. The helicopter's distinctive thump grows louder, approaching their extraction coordinates. Almost there, she encourages Alvarez, who is struggling to keep pace after days of captivity and mistreatment. 400 meters to extraction. As they reach a rear exit leading toward the eastern fence line, Elena spots movement ahead. 3 cartel operatives attempting to evacuate with cases of what appears to be documentation and cash. Their escape route will intersect directly with the veterinarian's path to safety. "Hold position," she instructs Alvarez, directing him behind concrete cover. "Shadow, Valor, secure." The Belgian Malinois move into defensive formation without hesitation, their bodies coiled with controlled aggression while awaiting specific commands. Elena assesses the tactical situation with cold efficiency. 3 armed hostiles, unknown. Weaponry, approximately 60 meters of open ground between current position and extraction point. Through her earpiece, Walker provides crucial intelligence. Helicopter 2 minutes out, Escobar in custody, Vargas status unknown. The information narrows Elena's tactical options. With extraction imminent, engaging in prolonged conflict creates unnecessary risk. She needs to clear the path quickly while minimizing both noise and time exposure. "Shadow, Valor," she commands softly, using hand signals to specify exact targeting. "Suppress and control." The military working dogs launch in perfect coordination, using terrain and shadows to approach the cartel operatives from multiple angles. Their attack is precisely calibrated, not the frenzied aggression of guard dogs, but the strategic incapacitation techniques of combat-trained assets. The cartel operatives barely have time to register the threat before Shadow and Valor neutralize them with extraordinary efficiency. No barking, no wasted movement, just the swift, controlled application of force, exactly as they were trained for hostage extraction scenarios. "Clear," Elena confirms, signaling Alvarez forward while retrieving a fallen operative's radio to monitor cartel communications. "Move now." They cross the final stretch of open ground toward the extraction point, Elena constantly scanning for threats while maintaining protective positioning around the exhausted veterinarian. Shadow and Valor operate in perfect tandem, creating a mobile security perimeter that shifts with their movement. The helicopter appears over the eastern ridge, its powerful spotlight sweeping the extraction zone to confirm their position. Through her earpiece, Elena receives final coordination. 30 seconds to touchdown. Area appearing secure, but maintain caution. "Understood," she acknowledges, positioning Alvarez for rapid boarding while maintaining defensive coverage. "Be advised, we have intelligence materials from neutralized cartel operatives." The helicopter settles into a hover just above the ground. DEA tactical team members providing covering fire from the open door. Elena guides Alvarez forward, maintaining protection while Shadow and Valor continue securing their perimeter against potential threats. "Dr. Reyes!" a tactical team member shouts over the rotor noise. "Priority boarding," Elena ensures Alvarez. Reaches the helicopter first, then signals her dogs with specific hand commands. Shadow and Valor execute a choreographed extraction movement, maintaining security coverage while retreating systematically toward the aircraft. As they approach the helicopter, a final burst of gunfire erupts from the compound, Varga and several bodyguards making a desperate break toward a secondary escape route. DEA tactical teams engage immediately, but several rounds impact near the extraction zone. Elena instinctively shields Alvarez with her body while signaling Shadow and Valor to maintain their positions. The tactical situation has deteriorated into final, desperate resistance as cartel leadership recognizes their operation is completely compromised. "Final boarding now," the helicopter crew chief shouts, reaching to help pull Alvarez aboard. Elena maintains covering position, ensuring her charge reaches safety before beginning her own approach to the aircraft. Shadow and Valor remain in perfect tactical formation, awaiting her command for final extraction. Through her earpiece, Walker provides crucial update. Varga neutralized, compound secured, all primary targets in custody. The information confirms the operation's success, allowing Elena to initiate final extraction protocol. With precise hand signals, she commands Shadow and Valor to board the helicopter, a movement they execute with the disciplined efficiency that made them exceptional military assets. As Elena herself climbs aboard, she takes one final assessment of the compound, now fully controlled by DEA tactical teams, with cartel leadership in custody and evidence secured. The operation has been an unqualified success, not just disrupting a dogfighting event, but dismantling a major cartel expansion into the region. The helicopter lifts away from the chaos below, banking sharply to begin its return journey to the secure DEA facility. Inside, medical personnel immediately attend to Alvarez, while tactical team members secure the intelligence materials recovered during the extraction. "That was some impressive work, Dr. Reyes," the team leader comments, genuine respect in his voice. "Those dogs of yours are something else." Elena allows herself a moment of professional pride as she checks Shadow and Valor for any injuries. The Belgian Malinois have already downshifted from combat mode to alert rest, another testament to their exceptional training. Military Working Dog Unit, 87th Tactical K9, she explains simply. 3 combat tours together. Understanding dawns in the agent's eyes. The cartel had no idea what they were dealing with. That was their critical mistake, Elena agrees, finally allowing some of the mission tension to release from her body. They saw a veterinarian with service animals, not a combat canine handler with military attack dogs, the agent finishes, shaking his head at the cartel's monumental tactical error. Alvarez, now receiving medical attention, looks toward Elena with newfound understanding. You let them take you, he realizes. This was planned. The DEA needed confirmed locations, evidence of operations, and positive identification of leadership, Elena explains. My background made me uniquely qualified to help provide that. And the dogs? Elena glances at Shadow and Valor, who have positioned themselves protectively even within the secured helicopter. We've been through worse together, much worse. Through the helicopter's windows, the compound diminishes in the distance. Tactical teams now systematically processing the scene and securing both evidence and animals. The operation represents a significant blow to the Serpent cartel's expansion plans, not just disrupting a single event, but compromising their entire regional network. Agent Walker reports all fighting dogs secured safely. The communications officer informs Elena. Animal control units are on site with veterinary support. The news provides genuine relief. Beyond the tactical success against the cartel, the mission has rescued dozens of abused animals from continuing exploitation. As the helicopter approaches the designated secure landing zone, Elena receives a final update through her earpiece. Preliminary assessment confirms 19 high-value cartel targets in custody, including Escobar. Intelligence materials indicate connections to 3 additional operations across the border. The information confirms the mission's strategic importance beyond the immediate tactical success. The cartel's entire regional network has been compromised, their operations exposed, their leadership in custody. What happens now? Alvarez asks, as medical personnel prepare him for transfer to a proper medical facility. You'll both receive complete protection during the investigation and prosecution, the tactical team leader explains. The evidence recovered should ensure the cartel leadership faces significant federal charges. Elena nods, already considering the longer-term implications. And the animals from the compound? Being evaluated for rehabilitation where possible, the agent confirms. Your clinic has been designated as a potential treatment facility once it's secured and restored. The helicopter touches down at the secure DEA facility, where Walker awaits with additional tactical teams and medical personnel. As the rotors wind down, Elena conducts a final check of Shadow and Valor before leading them from the aircraft. With military precision, mission complete, Dr. Reyes, Walker greets her, professional respect evident in his tone. The operation exceeded all tactical objectives. Elena acknowledges with the professional detachment of someone accustomed to combat operations, though her veterinarian's compassion emerges as she inquires about the fighting dogs recovered from the compound. Many will require extensive rehabilitation, Walker confirms, but our preliminary assessment is that most can be saved with proper care. I'd like to oversee their treatment personally, Elena requests, once the immediate security concerns are addressed. Walker studies her with newfound understanding. You know, when we first approached you about the cartel threat, I saw a veterinarian with military background. I didn't fully appreciate what that combination truly meant until tonight. Elena glances toward Shadow and Valor, who maintain perfect positioning despite the chaos of the landing zone activity. Most people don't. That was the cartel's fatal miscalculation, Walker observes. They thought they were abducting a veterinarian with pets. Instead, they brought a tactical K9 unit directly into their command center, Elena confirms, allowing herself a moment of professional satisfaction at the operation's success. As they move toward the debriefing area, Elena maintains awareness of her surroundings, a habit too deeply ingrained to abandon even in secured locations. Shadow and Valor mirror her vigilance, their positioning automatically adjusting to optimize protective coverage despite the absence of immediate threats. Your clinic suffered significant damage during their first abduction attempt, Walker informs her. The department will ensure it's properly restored and secured before your return. Elena nods acknowledgement, already processing next steps with the systematic efficiency that defined both her military career and her veterinary practice. The rescued fighting dogs will need specialized housing and rehabilitation protocols. I'll need to coordinate with animal behavior specialists. Walker studies her with growing appreciation for the seamless integration of her seemingly disparate backgrounds. You transition from combat operator to veterinarian without missing a beat. They're not as different as people think, Elena observes. Both require remaining calm under pressure, making life or death decisions with limited information and understanding that proper training is the foundation of success. As they reach the secure building, Elena looks back toward the distant horizon where multiple DEA vehicles are now returning from the raided compound. The operation has disrupted a significant criminal enterprise, rescued abused animals, and potentially saved many future victims from exploitation. Shadow and Valor maintain their vigilant positioning, combat-ready, despite the secured environment. Their extraordinary capabilities, disguised as ordinary service animals until the critical moment, had been the operation's defining advantage. The cartel never understood what they were truly dealing with, Walker observes, following her gaze. Elena allows herself a moment of professional pride as she watches her dogs execute their security protocols with flawless precision. No, she agrees quietly. They never did. The cartel's critical error hadn't been in targeting a veterinarian with dogs. Their fatal mistake was failing to recognize that sometimes the most dangerous opponents are those who appear least threatening until the moment they reveal their true capabilities. The Serpent cartel had kidnapped a veterinarian, never realizing. They were bringing a combat K9 handler and her military attack dogs directly into the heart of their operation. A tactical blunder that had resulted in their complete destruction. They had seen only what they expected to see, a frightened veterinarian with emotional support animals, rather than recognizing the lethal military asset hidden in plain sight. It was a mistake they would never have the opportunity to repeat. 3 months after the raid, Elena stands at the edge of the rehabilitation center's largest exercise yard, watching the transformed animals with quiet satisfaction. What once were weaponized fighting dogs now show remarkable progress toward recovery, a testament to dedicated veterinary care and specialized rehabilitation protocols. Matador's latest blood work shows normal hormone levels, Dr. Alvarez reports, joining her at the fence. No detectable synthetic compounds for the first time since recovery. The withdrawal protocol was completely successful. Elena nods with professional satisfaction. The massive pit bull mix that had been the cartel's prized champion now plays cautiously with other recovering dogs. His chemically enhanced aggression replaced by emerging social behaviors. His brain chemistry is still adjusting, she observes, but the fundamental temperament assessment shows natural resilience. He'll be eligible for specialized placement within another month. Shadow and Valor patrol the rehabilitation centers, perimeter with practiced precision, maintaining security protocols despite the facility's remote location and federal protection. The Belgian Malinois still operate with military discipline, though their positioning now prioritizes animal protection rather than tactical advantage. Miguel approaches with a tablet displaying comprehensive recovery statistics. His role has expanded significantly during the rehabilitation operation, his natural talents flourishing under Elena's mentorship. 17 dogs have completed primary rehabilitation. 5 are already in specialized service training programs. The transformation has exceeded expectations, Elena acknowledges, reviewing the detailed progress reports. Even with the pharmaceutical enhancement damage, their recovery capabilities demonstrate extraordinary resilience. The Rehabilitation Center represents an unprecedented collaboration between veterinary medicine and federal law enforcement. Specialized facilities funded through seized cartel assets, staffed by experts in both animal rehabilitation and evidence preservation. What began as emergency response has evolved into a pioneering program with implications beyond this single case. The pharmaceutical evidence has yielded significant intelligence, Walker explains, joining their observation of the recovering animals. 3 international operations disrupted based on manufacturing connections we identified. The cartel's entire enhancement research program has been compromised. Elena receives this information with measured satisfaction. The operational success extends far beyond the initial dogfighting intervention, exposing sophisticated criminal networks while simultaneously saving animals that might otherwise have been considered beyond rehabilitation. We've received placement requests from 3 federal agencies, Walker continues, showing Elena an official document requiring her approval. They're specifically requesting dogs that have completed your rehabilitation program for specialized detection work. Their resilience and recovery capabilities make them uniquely suited for certain security applications. This development represents profound validation of Elena's integrated approach, not just rescuing the animals, but transforming their traumatic experiences into positive potential. Dogs once victimized by criminal exploitation now have opportunities to serve in legitimate protection roles. The Senate Judiciary Committee has requested your testimony next month, Walker adds. The specialized rehabilitation protocols you've developed have policy implications for animal recovery in criminal cases nationwide. They're considering standardized funding for similar programs based on your results here. Elena processes this information with characteristic focus on practical implementation rather than personal recognition. The veterinary documentation from the rehabilitation program provides crucial evidence connecting the dogfighting operation to the larger pharmaceutical development. These aren't separate cases, they're integrated components of the same criminal enterprise. This perspective has repeatedly proven valuable throughout the investigation. Her unique combination of veterinary expertise and military tactical training, revealing connections that conventional approaches might have missed. The cartel's catastrophic error in abducting her continues to yield consequences they never anticipated. The rehabilitation protocols demonstrate crucial patterns in how the cartel was developing their pharmaceutical compounds. Dr. Alvarez confirms his own expertise significantly expanded through their collaboration. The recovery timelines reveal specific neurological targeting that corresponds directly with the laboratory evidence. This integrated evidence has strengthened federal prosecution against cartel leadership, connecting animal abuse directly to pharmaceutical weapons development in ways that create comprehensive legal accountability. What began as a veterinary abduction has transformed into a landmark case with international security implications. Carmen approaches in her official police uniform, having returned to local law enforcement after completing her temporary DEA assignment. The security perimeter change of shift is complete. Also, visitors from the Veteran Service Dog Program have arrived for the evaluation session. Elena acknowledges with approval the rehabilitation program has established partnerships with several specialized service dog organizations, creating placement opportunities for recovering animals with appropriate temperaments and capabilities. Many dogs once forced into fighting now train for legitimate service roles, supporting veterans with PTSD and mobility challenges. Shadow, Valor, with me, she commands softly. The Belgian Malinois immediately responding with precise movements that reflect their extraordinary training. Despite the secured environment, they maintain vigilant positioning as she moves toward the main facility to meet the visitors. Inside the rehabilitation center's main building, Elena reviews detailed recovery documentation with visiting program representatives. The specialized nature of the rehabilitation program has attracted national attention from both veterinary medicine and law enforcement communities, establishing new protocols for animals recovered from criminal enterprises. Your approach integrates behavioral rehabilitation with evidence preservation in ways we haven't seen before, one visitor observes, studying the comprehensive documentation systems. These animals aren't just being treated, they're helping build the case against their abusers while recovering. The processes are necessarily connected, Elena explains. Their rehabilitation reveals crucial evidence about what was done to them, which simultaneously strengthens prosecution while informing specialized treatment protocols. This integrated perspective continues to distinguish her approach from conventional methods, creating a pioneering program with implications beyond immediate animal welfare. The Rehabilitation Center has become a model for future operations, involving animals recovered from sophisticated criminal enterprises. As the meeting concludes, Elena returns to the exercise yards for final evening assessment. The setting sun casts long shadows across the facility as recovering dogs engage in supervised socialization activities. Another step in their journey from weaponized assets to rehabilitation success stories. Shadow and Valor maintain watchful positions, their military training evident in how they systematically track movement patterns throughout the facility while awaiting specific commands. Their extraordinary capabilities have proven invaluable throughout both the tactical operation and subsequent rehabilitation program. We've received preliminary approval for permanent program funding, Walker informs her, joining her final observation rounds. The Department of Justice has recognized both the evidentiary value and rehabilitation success. They're proposing establishing this as a permanent federal facility under your direction. Elena considers this development with professional focus on implementation requirements rather than personal advancement. The rehabilitation protocols need proper documentation for standardized application, and the facility requires expanded capacity to accommodate multi-agency operations. Already included in the proposal, Walker confirms, along with provisions for specialized veterinary training programs based on your methodologies. This is becoming much more than a single case response. This evolution represents significant validation of Elena's integrated approach. Veterinary medicine and tactical security operations combine to create something more effective than either discipline alone could achieve. The cartel's fundamental miscalculation in abducting her continues to yield consequences they never anticipated. As darkness settles over the rehabilitation center, Elena conducts final security assessment with Shadow and Valor, providing additional sensory capabilities. The Belgian Malinois move with perfect coordination, their extraordinary training creating security coverage that complements technological systems throughout the facility.